Show of hands, how many people were on the other side? All of us? Everybody there? Most? Okay, great. This won't work unless we do this in a question fashion. You'll get more from it. I'm going to try to, you'll make me better. If I just stand here and keep talking to you, won't be as powerful as if we talk together. So we're going to do this a lot like what I do every day. So we'll just have that kind of an engagement. I want to ask you this question up front. I want you to think about the 4 pillars of your life. So the 4 pillars of your life would be the physical pillar, and that's the pillar that you take care of the body, the way you feed the body, the way you exercise the body, the way you maintain that level, the body. Over here, think about your emotional pillar, how you share, create with others, the expression of love. You know, man needs to be admired and woman needs to be cherished. There is a dynamic there that needs to be fed and nurtured. So that emotional pillar with the physical pillar is then also supplemented by a spiritual pillar. What is it you believe in your life that's greater than you? That thing that almost is an overarching umbrella over everything you do. It protects your values. It houses that ineffable form of passion and chemistry that you have in life. That's a very, very crucial pillar. And the other one is the mental construct, the mental pillar. How do you feed? Now we know how you're going to feed your body and take care of your body. You know how you're going to feed your spirit and nurture your spirit. Now, how are you going to feed that mental pillar? One of the ways to feed it is to learn through books, to learn through podcasts, to learn through speakers, and then to learn through self-questions. Because often in life, the thing that we're faced with is the search for an answer when there is no answer. And sometimes we need to be okay when there's not an answer. I'll give you a quick story about judgment and prejudice in the workplace that has to do with trying to find an answer. I think in every company there's a need, because every person has a need, to find the reason why. So if I say that Steve is out today, the first thing that happens is my managers will come in my office and say, why is Steve out? Now the brain needs to find that. Even if you feed the brain BS, and you know you're feeding the brain BS, it needs to protect itself. That's one of the things we learned next door, and that's one of the ways it has to protect itself, by giving it an answer. It's very hard. Watch people speak with you. It's very hard for them not to make, it must be because of, it has to be, you know what? And we've got to find an answer. Now, you're going to be aware of that. You're going to be able to listen better. You're going to be able to really get that, and you're going to have power from that. So let me tell you what happens. Well, Steve's out? Well, what is it? It's a migraine. Well, 2 months, 3 months, or a year later, Steve's out. What's wrong with Steve? It's a migraine. Oh man, he must be weak. What the heck? We start to judge. We start to judge as individuals, and we start to spread that judgment into the collective. And what happens as leaders, you will start thinking, I can't put Steve in another position. He's not going to be here long. He ain't going to be here long. Oh, guess what? He's been out every Monday. He's been out on Wednesdays. He's weaker. What I teach my company is do not ask. The result of their absence is that they are absent. Doesn't matter what the reason is, they're out. Now, you might need to search for a reason to fill into your file to say, you know, here's a document of times that these transgressions are occurring. But I think the bigger picture is this. If he wants to be there and we want him, he will be there. And when you're sick, you're sick. And when you need time off, you need time off. And it can be your personal time. I don't need to see it exported to the company calendar. So as you feed your pillars, understand that one will give you some power because you are aware. I will say that my biggest takeaway for everyone today is this. Awareness carries with it an obligation. Think about both terms. Aware. Okay, I'm aware of this. An obligation. You'll have an obligation to do something about that which you're now aware. Right there, boom. That is it. If you deny it and walk away from it, it will come back to you, and when it does, it has teeth. You will kick yourself in the derriere because you didn't do something when you had the power, the awareness to do it. Awareness is power. Doing nothing is a choice. You know that, you've heard that. But when you are aware of something, you have a choice. You have an obligation to do something about that which you're now aware. You've heard part of this story, but for me, I was aware that I was blanking out my life. I became aware when I walked into that factory. Sawdust, lacquer, same thing every day, punching 3 holes into a piece of wood. Now you see me walk around, move around, you see how my mind works. Could you imagine me going through 1,000 pieces of wood? Yeah, 1,000 pieces of wood. Some of them are defect, but boom, 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 boom. You get a break, you have your sandwich, you come back, you get 10 minutes, and by the way, you better not punch in 1 minute late because you get docked an hour at $3.20 an hour. Now, what are you aware of? You're aware that you are the product of your choices. You can't put that condition responsibility on someone else. You look in the mirror, no denial, no delusion. I did it, I blanked it out. Now, how do I fix it? Who do I need to help me? Can't do it alone. No person is an island. I didn't get into the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I'll tell you why I didn't get in. I wasn't smart enough. And I couldn't figure out that answer. Well, question to that. I said, here you go, write about no man is an island. And I went, was it Gilligan's Island? I don't know what that means. I don't have a clue, right? You ain't getting in. I figured it out. I figured it out later. Every one of us need others. We can't live alone in this vacuum. We can't. We need other people to help us, to assist us. You are going to be, you've heard this before, it's Jim Rohn. It's not Tony Robbins, it's Jim Rohn. You're going to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know when I spend time with my friends, which I'm going to do in Las Vegas and give myself a reward for all this hard work you're making me do, with my 12th closest friend on my birthday, July 30th, send me a card. On July 30th, all right, I know that we're going to goof off, hang around, and do what we do, but then I'm going to go back to 5 other people when I come back to work, or at least 3 other people, and start changing that dynamic because I can listen to people. I can hear different ideas. I might not agree with everything you say to me, but maybe if I listened, I might be able to get a different perspective. You see, I might be able to open my mind. I want you to think about this. Think about this. I opened an office in San Diego. This is a bittersweet place for me to visit. It's probably my first time back here since I failed and fell flat on my face here. You know how I did it? My ego was so big because our company was thriving in the north. In Irvine, California, we were thriving and we needed to grow, we needed to scale. And no other broker, no one in our business had ever come from another place other than San Diego and made it. No one. It took me a year, and I worked it, and I worked it, and I thought, I got it. I'm going to hire people from San Diego. I'm going to give them a nice big office right here in La Jolla. It's going to be sweet, and I'm going to do it with their people, so it's really not coming from another place. It's their own people. San Diego is very parochial. San Diego is very closed off and provincial, and they keep their money in San Diego. They do not spend it up north. So I did it, and I took on all this overhead. And it didn't work. And my accountants and my CPAs and my CFO, they said, you have to do this. Now, you can answer this, you can ask this later. What do you go with in life, your head or your gut? And you can say both, it's fine. But what's the driver, what's the governor? Think about that, we'll get to that in the Q&A. What's the driver, what's the governor? Now, in my head, it looked like there's no way I can't fail. It's the first time you're going to fail. There's just no way. In my gut, oh man, I don't know. So people talk to me, they use that rational approach. Oh man, makes too much sense, have to. Yeah, it cost me 7 figures. That was a very big check to write. So last time I tried that crap again, I went here every time. What failed is the culture. I didn't know the work ethic, the way, the standards of the people. I just knew they had very big names and very big books of what I wanted here. But I didn't know those books came with an attachment to it, and the attachment was they weren't the right character people for me. That's a very, very costly exercise for me. So what does awareness bring with it? An obligation to do something about what you're now aware. A lot of us go through bad relationships. This is going to get really good. Remember, I was on Steve Harvey. Bad dates, bad stuff, right? And we rationalize that stuff, and we're aware of it, and we deal. We kick the can down the road. 3 years later, we're kicking ourselves. But you know what? You should be kicking yourself, because that answer was always in your mirror. If you're not taken care of from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from an intellectual standpoint, where you can both grow, and you both believe in values greater than those things that are character, those things that are right or wrong, not gray, you ain't gonna make it in business. You're not gonna make it in a relationship. I don't know much about those relationship things, except I do them every day in business. I better get better at it though, right, Steve? Yeah, I better get better at it. So this is gonna be a Q&A. It's not just gonna be me up here spurting around, sputtering around. All right, this sounds like it's a platitude, because it is. Anything worthy of achievement, anything worthy of success is gonna be hit by the big F word. No one likes it. We can call it setback. You can call it a little bit of a bruise. Call it the euphemism you choose. But at the end of the day, if you're ever going to get anything, you're going to get kicked by failure. It's going to meet you. Are you going to be ready for it? Failure is a part of life. You've heard it. But the mountains of success are founded upon all of the detritus, all of the garbage that was failure, because you learned from it. Now, if you fail the same time over and over and over, and you're not learning from that failure, you're not creating a field of awareness, you will keep on failing. You have to know that there's an expected range of failure in everything you do. Let's say I wanted to go out and play football. You think I could just pick up a ball and start throwing it around like Tom Brady? God, that hurt to say that. Like Ben Roethlisberger? Probably now. But no, there's always an expected range of failure. Let me tell you about that. All right. So in high school, Western Pennsylvania, big thing was football. And I was a quarterback, and my parents came to this big game. Big game. Big rival. And I wanted to be the hero. And I threw this one really risky pass. Guy picked it off. He's still running. It's the longest interception return in Pennsylvania school history. So that was the end of my football career. It did not end well. Don't ask me about that. The cycle of avoidance is something most people do to kick around those problems, kick away those problems, and not face those things in the mirror that they have to face to go through life. Let me tell you this, and anyone who ever speaks with you, to you, you probably know this. There's no candy coat in this stuff. There's no easy way to circumvent it. There's no shortcut. Now, a lot of people that work with me are always looking for a shortcut. But Bill, what's the faster way to do it? Is there a more efficient way to do it? Most things go through the work. If you don't roll up your sleeves and go to work, if you don't face failure, if you don't face disappointment and rejection, you will never grow as a person. You will never grow. You won't grow physically because you're not taking care of yourself and creating momentum of movement. You're not taking care of yourself emotionally. You're not cared for emotionally. You're in a bad place. And the same with the spiritual belief in the overarching protection of your values and something greater than, and your ability to create new thoughts from which you take in. Good book, not mine, called Think Again by Adam Grant. Adam Grant will tell you, question what you hear, because so much of what you hear has been passed down by generations and by people as this is what it is. But is it really that? It's not a deep philosophical read, but it is a very practical, hands-on read that you can really use. And he'll say to you, people will come at you, you'll relate to this, as a prosecutor trying to make their point, or as a preacher trying to enroll you into their view of things, or a politician that needs your vote. Excellent read on people thinking again, what looks to be might not be. It will open your mind. And I'll tell you the second one, you might have heard it, might have read it. It is the ultimate defining book. When I started to speak, I wanted to know where all these speakers came up with these sound like same things. And everything came back to attitude. Where'd that come from? So that is part of my quest for knowledge and for information, just because I'm curious. So where did it come from? It came from a guy named Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, one of the greatest seminal reads you'll ever have about everything being taken away from you. It was Nazi Germany. His wife was taken to a prison camp. He was taken to one. And he watched others and watched their attitude as everything was stripped from them and found the one thing that they couldn't take. And that was the meaning he assigned to the experience. His attitude of a life beyond, that when he got out of there, this is how it was going to be. And as humans, we need to have something in front of us that we strive for. We need to have something of meaning to create a life of vitality. People are unhappy because they don't have that thing they look forward to in a prospective way. They're always looking back here. You can't change that, but you can learn from it. You can learn from it. Any achievement is going to be met with failure. Anything worthy of endeavor, the flip side of that shiny coin called success is called failure. That's life. How do you recognize what fear is? You avoid loss or you avoid change. We all do. As we learned next door, when you were a baby, falling, loud noises, those are your fears. But then you got in a classroom, and some people started to pick on you. Maybe your bell bottoms were a little too long. Maybe you just kind of looked a little goofy because you had to wear glasses. Maybe you look like, oh, is that me? And so that's just how you learn to stay a little bit sheltered. And you don't want to sit down and have to raise your hand on an answer because you might not be right, and you get excoriated, man, you'd be eviscerated by that teacher. That was terrible. You know, my first year at Purdue, I didn't know much, right? I was right out of Western PA, right out of that factory. Professor asked me, what's the meaning of life? And I'm like, whoa, I don't know. And I wanted to shrink down, and I wanted to wear baseball hats, and I wanted to get down there. SOB kept calling on me. But he made me better. He made me better. He made me go look for it. I'm still looking for it. I'll give you the shortcut to live your life. That's the meaning of life. So once you understand where those fears come from, you have that obligation to address those fears if you want to grow. You don't have to. But if you want to get out there and do something because your loved ones are watching you, they depend on you, or you just want a better feeling in life, maybe that's your way. I don't know. It was mine. It's the people I coach, the people that I work with. I have to try to make it theirs, but I can't give it to them. I always tell people, I'd love to do your push-ups, but I can't. You've got to get in there and actually do the work. And there's a whole lot of nasty stuff, nail-breaking stuff that comes with it. Fear and danger is very important. You've got to be able to make the difference, and you can really focus on this. If you're going through a back alley, it's dark. Do you feel those hairs on your arm? Do you feel your nerve? That's the amygdala. It's scanning the environment. It's going, doesn't think. It's scanning the environment for threats. So you're going to respond the same way in that alley as you may in that classroom, in that courtroom, in that office setting, when something you think is going to hurt you is out there. But the fear that we talk about is different than danger, because danger is that threat from man, insect, things that can kill you. But fear, the one we talk about, is invisible. Fear is an early warning protection system to keep us alive. It is the brain's function to survive. We learned that. And it was 1,200 calories, maybe 1,300 or 1,400 calories, and you start to feel like you're going to perish. So your metabolism will slow way down. You want to know how to trick it? Okay, here's how you trick it. You start eating, like I should have done, really small meals every 2.5 to 3 hours, mostly of protein. It will start to pump that brain back up, and that willpower bar will start to grow again. Here's the thing about willpower. You are all born with a level of willpower that is set. It's set. So mine might be right here. Yours might be right here. But every day when we choose to put on a tie, suit, what direction we're going to, anytime we start thinking, that bar of willpower, much like a video game, starts to go down like this. The way we replenish that is to take a step back, feed it some really good fuel, try not to stress too much because stress will deplete it, Choices will deplete it, and lack of nutrition will deplete it. And doing too many things at once and not finishing will definitely deplete it. The way to grow it, small meals, take a step back, do the tough thinking in the morning, put off the really tough thinking you have to do in the afternoon, and then come back to it. I'll tell you why. Your mind looks like a steel fence in the morning with no space between it. Your willpower bar is high. At the end of the day, you're making so many damn choices, you start making some really bad choices around 4 o'clock. In my company, no choices after 4, no decisions, no promotions, no raises. And they know that because they'll come to me at 4 o'clock. My butt, I can't swear, I'd be swearing the whole time. My butt is beat. I said, Bill, can I move into the corner office? Sure, take whatever you want. My willpower's gone. But that's how I should always go away. So, and I learned that by just studying and reading and figuring that stuff out by all the different sources. And then I learned the most encouraging thing that there was. Hey, okay, Bill, your willpower was here. It's actually a little bigger than that. But you can grow it. There's a plasticity to that willpower in that prefrontal cortex. Not to get too tricky, but you can grow that. You know how you do it? You start finishing those projects. You start extending that willpower bar just a little bit more, then take some time off, replenish that willpower bar. It's in my first book, Always Forward. If you want it, I'll send it to you. You don't need to buy it. It's a great book written by a brilliant author. You think I'm kidding you, don't you? But you really, okay. It looks like, really not so brilliant. Looks like this. That was a joke. Thanks, you got it. Your brain really does look like this. And I'm not going to go theology, I'm not going to go religious, but I'm going to show you something about, you have to kind of put your brain here and kind of trust me on this. If it doesn't work, it's just me playing with an idea. In the early days of our life, we were really subject to the bottom part of that brain. That's instinct. So when we walked down a road, we didn't think, we couldn't think. We didn't feel, but instinct was there to keep us alive and for us to keep evolving as people. So instinct is, then through time, we were able to evolve to take that feeling of whoop, no thought, to the front part of our brain. Oh man, that's a stick, that's not a snake. That's called the prefrontal cortex. It's like a little shower cap up there. That's the CEO brain. So when you're in traffic, this is a tip, this is a hack, all right? It'll work sometimes, not in California. But when you're in traffic, sir, you are down here on instinct. When you're in the conference room, you're in the courtroom, and you're scared, you're shut down on instinct. That's reptile brain, R2, the scientists will call it. And then you learn, hey, ain't no saber-toothed tiger coming through that door. So when you're in traffic, right? Here's what you do. Start talking. How would I rather feel? What's going on? What's happening here? Just the pattern break of you saying that. Don't say it don't start talking to yourself when you're in the car though. I mean, if you're alone, not when you're with people, but just how would I rather feel? Start thinking, what can I do about this? Your brain will start looking for what? The answer. Your brain will start searching for an answer, the way out. Get on that search system and try to find a way out. When you're down here, you're just swearing, yelling, you're in road rage, you ain't thinking at all. That is animal instinct, and that's base instinct, and you're going to stay at the base instinct unless you learn a way to get out of it. That's one way. Break the pattern. Understand, anything you're involved with, you're probably scared, a little bit instinctive on it, and then the mid part of your brain is your emotion. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to feel these things to be hurt. You don't feel what... You try to protect yourself. That's the brain's major function. I can say that 1,000 times and be right every time. It's not me. It's a lot of people that are really well versed. Does that make it right? No, but it makes it a consensus. Who knows? At the end of the day, when you read that book by Adam Grant, who knows? It's the best collection of what we think we know. And you know what the wisest person in Greece said? His name was Plato. And people said to him, how do you know so much? How are you so smart? How are you so wise? He said, I know that I don't know. And that will open your world to the possibilities of the world. That will open your world to people in it. When you always have the freaking answer, when you always think you know, when you always think you're right, you are staying in a circle of comfort. Let me tell you a story about two people, me and my brother, who looks like me. Some say he's a better looking version, and he's a lot more sensible. But he wanted everything outside of that picket fence and cane. If we had one, we didn't. He wanted everything inside. He wanted the hearth, all the protective things, all the security of family and safety. And I wanted everything outside there. I wanted California. I wanted the sun. I wanted the beach. I wanted the open. I wanted the risk. I would go for it. I could fall on my sword. But I was going to get back up if it didn't kill me. But I had to go. So the safety that we live in is our world of what we think we know. And we don't want to question the anchors, the foundation that make us us. Yourself is built on the ego, on what you represent to society. What you put on a business card, what you wear, what you drive, how you talk about things, that's your ego saying, this is what I want you to think I am. This is who I want you to think I am. And if you don't open your mind to the possibility of difference, you're never going to grow. You're going to stay right here in the provincial thought, in the cauldron of the same doo-doo. That's a fact, according to me. Be clear about what it is you must have. Okay. I don't want to say the number because it would probably blow you away. Of the people I've coached, trained, hired, recruited, not many know what they really want. Not many know what they really want. People always know what they fear, but they rarely know with true crystal clarity what it is they want. You have wishes. Oh, I'd like to have. Oh, that's not it. What is it you really want to do? So if someone says, I want to be a court reporter, I want to be an attorney, why? What is that going to give you? Why do you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? You have to keep asking those 5 questions of why to get to a person's clarity if they're able to get it. And you might not have the answer right now. That's okay. That's okay. But you've got to do something that moves you toward that answer. You've got to come up and have the next step. Everything you do is a learning experience for the next thing. So when people come to work with me, they might not want to work in my environment forever, but they sure as heck leave with something that makes them better than what they came in with. They tell me that. I didn't put that in their mouth. They do. So even if it's the ability to look in the mirror and own and be true to yourself, even if it's the ability to follow yourself and don't go off script by trying to be too many things to too many people, even if it is, this is what I'm not good at, can you help me? It makes it a better place. It will make them a better person. And that's my job, is to create the environment, which we're going to talk about, but to create the environment where people can grow. Is it easy? No. Because I am squeegeeing up tears or blotting up some little bit of blood because we lost money somehow. And we do. We lose money when people fail at things, but they're learning, so they're moving forward. Now you can't have repetitive mistakes where people can't think and connect dots. I mean, after a certain time, that's the wrong environment. If I wanted to be an astronaut, guarantee you couldn't be one. You want to know why? Can't do math. I'm on that. I ain't that smart. No way. But I really want to be an astronaut. That's what I really want. I have clarity, Bill. I can see the moon. I want to go to the moon. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an astronaut all my life. Can't do it. Wrong environment. You've got to be in an environment. Can't be a mechanic either. I can't even change bolts on cars. I can't do anything. Is that true? Yeah, 100%. So what can I do? I got to find an environment that is rich or that can support my talent. I can write certain things. Sometimes I can convey a message, sometimes it's a little incoherent, but I got to be in that environment. Now, who pays for that? Well, these companies pay for people who can do these things. Okay, that's the right environment. You got to have the right environment for your skill set or you will be frustrated all the time and you will fail, and that will be that. I can't do a whole lot of things. Let's say I wanted to be in the NFL. Okay. I could be in the NFL probably. You want to know how? I could probably be pumping air in those balls. That'd be it. Or taking it out if you're New England. I could probably do that. I'm in the NFL, but not really. So a lot of people are trying to be in your industry or do those things, but they're really posing. They're not players. If you're going to be a player, you're going to have to take off and divest yourself from all those things you think you know. You're going to have to get really freaking uncomfortable. You're going to have to do your own push-ups. You're going to have to own those pillars. Every day you're going to have to grow them when you don't want to get out of bed. Do you think I really want to get out of those duvet covers of mine and come, not to San Diego, but get on a plane and go to freaking, what's the coldest place on earth, Kane? And go to Australia? Yeah, I probably do. But not at 6 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. But that's what it takes. If you don't want to do it, you don't do it. It's not for everybody. No. No, a lot of people need a job, 8:30 to 5, and I hire a bunch of those people, and I love those people because they make me, without them, I couldn't do this. They take care of me, and I take care of them. So if I can do things that feed them and they do things that I don't have to worry about, it's great. That's the bargain of life. Now, I'm going to pause it because I got a long way to go. You know, anybody need a bathroom break? No, I'm going to pause this. All right, for a minute. There ain't no wrong answers. You're not me at Purdue under this glare about the meaning of life with about 1,000 people looking down your back and coming up, short. There's no wrong answers. Probably I might not have the answer to it, but there's no question. Anybody have a question for me?
How do you negotiate or navigate age differences in the workplace, and what feedback do you have for young leaders in the workplace?
Okay. Depending on what camp you're in, what hat you wear, that is a really, really, really good question. This is the first thing I did with millennials, and I didn't use the term until right now, until recently, where I started to characterize and say, there are certain dispositions and traits of a millennial. I didn't do that because it would prejudice, it would limit my experience of a person. So I think if I take a whole group and say, every millennial is like this, now that is me with some really fuzzy, lazy thinking. And I have some millennials, just like I have some Gen Xers, just like I have some baby boomers who have left. But I have a whole lot that stay. So when I'm navigating the workplace, the toughest thing I have to do is take a manager that has been with me for 28 years and has ossified thoughts, calcium-like thoughts of how we used to do it, which is a death knell for a creative company, and navigate her minefield, take some of her, complaining, and go and support, I know you don't want to hear this, the younger thoughts I have. If I want to be vibrant, I got to go there. So I am trying to position both to work together. Sometimes you can, but we are not going to follow the same old playbook. We will not be around. So what I do is to try to bring them together with ideas first, not people. Stay focused on the product first. Don't the personality. Divest yourself of anything that looks like what you used to do unless it really does support the culture, unless it is fundamental to your survival, not growth, survival. Your growth is going to be found in the new. I'm old, and I got to say that, and it's true because my new leadership, they're better than me. They are better than me by far, because I made all those mistakes that I try to keep them from. So now I got to bring forth some people that have been there 28, 27, 26. This isn't the Wooditch way. This isn't the so they're going to play this philosophical principle on you. It's not our principle, it's not this, but I'm a pragmatist. If I want to grow, man, I got to hand that baton over. And it's every day of working on product, not personality. Does it succeed? No. But I'm going to bifurcate that. I'm going to split that. Where they can work together, I'll find a bridge. Not always, and it ain't easy, and I know that's a long answer, but did you get some of that? And I would suggest this to you. That's up to you and your company. If you're an employee of that company, it's a tough one to navigate. As a leader, I get it on that one. If I'm going to grow, it's going to be through minds who are not quite there yet or on the cusp of being there. Different world. Man, a different world. When most of us were in business, we had fax machines. We wrote letters. What the hell is that? You want to hear a funny thing? My right arm, as an assistant who helped me write my book, she's great. I said, well, just write this down. She goes, well, I can't write cursive. I said, you got to be kidding me. I can't write cursive. Well, I can't type, so there we go. budding tech, it's a different world. And if I'm going to expand my world, I'm going to change it. Now, those wise minds in the corner, if they're not causing me trouble, if they're not fomenting trouble, they've got great spots with me because they are the sagacious guide. They are the avuncular way. They are a huge part of our company because they do represent ideas, and they do have ideas if they leave their door open where the young people can grow and learn. If they get their ego out of the way and understand this is about growing tomorrow's leader, that's it. And guess where that thought comes from? Me. I enforce that. I will change the dynamic of that company, meaning people, if we're not growing that way. And for right now, we are. We are. I know I'm going to get terrible, terrible grades on that. I just got an F, but it's not my first time. That was a good question. Remember, no bad, that was really good. Try to top that one. I'm taking a break, so you're going to give me a question. Let me give you an example of a willpower bar. Imagine where mine is right now. Actually, I brought a Snickers. I got another 4 hours in me, it's fine. All right. The biggest thing I don't want to do is to try to stand up here like some person trying to force ideas onto you and like some opinionated, no, I just have ideas. And I know because some of my experiences, it's limited to me, but I know some things work pretty well for me. Some things might not work that well for you, but some things you do will work a lot better for you than they do for me. But every situation is different, but the fundamentals are right here. If you don't own those pillars, and if you don't own at the line of contact with your mirror and with the outside world, personal responsibility for who you are, for your profession, for your product, you are doing much less than in this life. Much, much less than. And you will leave probably with regrets. But some won't because they will deny the existence of it. Come forth, look, know what the weakness is, know what you want, be true to yourself at all times, and follow that path. And guess what? If the path ain't getting you there, man, just get another one. So many people try to be perfect. It doesn't exist. It's the enemy of good. All we can ever be in life is good. Ain't no such thing as perfect. It stops people. I hired this guy right out of school. He looked great. He's a really good-looking kid. Looks like Clint Eastwood's kid, if you know who he is. And he had everything. He's a former baseball star. He's big-time college. He's great. You look at him, and you run his test scores, and we have all these tests and these writing things, and you bring him in. You think he's gonna be your star, man. And he got to the part where fear came in the building, which is on day one, when you have to make all those calls and get your butt handed to you because it's just, that's just nature of the game. And he just ground it for he just kept grinding for 2 years and never did it. And it's a function of this. You're in the wrong environment or you're in the right environment. Now, if you're in the right environment, you gotta do the work. What is the work? You need to get a reading and a temperature on what it is to be very successful in your industry. And you need to go way past that. When I found out that activity ruled success, I looked around and said, how many calls are these people making here? 100, 30, 40? Well, I'll make 300. And I made 300 a day till my ear turned into a cauliflower because yes, it was a phone book. And yes, it was a real phone. No one knows what that is anymore. And yeah, it did. But guess what happened? I said to myself, look, you might not be any good at this, but you have to make yourself, you've got to make a bargain with yourself. First thing. No matter what, if you have to make 1,000 of these and get no's except for one, are you willing to do it? And I said, yes, I was. And that changed the entire game because from one it became two and then two became three. And it just got better and better because I faced those fears, faced rejection, and kept improving and moving myself forward because I really, really, really wanted it. You know what I wanted? I had come from that small town in Western PA, combined family income of $15,000. Really, really small house. Dad was a state policeman, mom was a nurse, and had hand-me-down clothes. And I remember my mom always looking at grocery bills. And I remember always having those hand-me-down clothes that I would always grow out of. So when I got my first job, I cut out a picture of a Ferrari, put it right there. And I cut out a picture of a house in California, put it right there. I'll be damned. Anyway, it worked. But I had to do that. I could smell that leather. I could see the ocean. I could hear the waves. And I took my mom to California and brought her out every year for 15 years so she could stay with me and my brother until she flew back to Pennsylvania. And she never looked at a grocery bill again. And that was very expensive. But that was what I was working for. That was the intrinsic joy of doing something. There's got to be a higher purpose of something. It's not about just the material. That stuff gets rusty. That stuff doesn't give you a bounce. The biggest bounce you have from stuff like that is generally when you drive it off the lot. Other than that, your life is about doing those things that make you better in some way. It's about pushing the envelope. It's about taking that one stretch and doing something more. Any questions at this point? If you're going to innovate and change, okay, does anybody remember the BlackBerry? Oh man, I love the BlackBerry. It was the greatest thing ever. No, it was my favorite thing. You could type so fast on that thing, right? And so the founder of BlackBerry was in love with this product. He should have been. He was a Canadian. And Apple was coming out with something different. He said, no one's ever going to be able, no one wants to have a computer in their hand. And all they want to do is email, some phone calls, but that's it. And Apple, Steve Jobs, was in love with the iPod. He was in love with that. He didn't want to do the whole phone different thing. All he wanted was the iPod. He thought anything was going to cannibalize that iPod. No way. So got some really, really fearless people in his company, because he had a terrible temper. Some fearless people on their own started to work on a computer in the hand, phone, and music. He could have it all in one. BlackBerry found out. Never find the battery for that. By the time BlackBerry adapted to that, it was too late, and they were done. Innovation is always the bleeding edge. Innovation comes from thinking. It comes from expressing young minds and listening to the more sagacious, experienced minds, and coming together in the middle to figure out a way, a path forward together. It's about working together. Every day, I'm dealing with singular objectives and agendas from every one of my coworkers. I didn't say employees, coworkers. And I've got to find a way to show them that by doing things together in the collective good, they will meet their individual needs. And I've got to show them that. I've got to come into their office and talk to them. I've got to meet them on their terms. I've got to make sure that they're doing those things that create meaningful work. As far back as the 30s, Frederick Taylor found that people need work that means something to them, meaningful work. He also found that those people need to be recognized for their work. So recognition is huge, along with meaningful work that moves you to a place where you're doing those things that feed your family, that take care of you. But innovation is the bleeding edge. It is the cutting edge of product development. Agility, adaptation, and the other A word of awareness are the leading factors in creating that thing which is different. I know some of you have this gene, maybe all of you have this gene, where you think of things that could just be better, a way to make things a little better, a way to just channel that little inner rebellious gene and say, can I do this? Can I make this a better way? Can I try this? But so many of us stay in this cauldron of fear because we don't want to stick our necks out, and we fear that if we do that, we're going to lose something. There's everything to gain by taking those small steps forward, championing those ideas, and bringing them in a professional manner to people who can implement them. Now, that's a genetic disorder that I have, but I like to push the envelope, and I like to try different things. I'll tell you something that changed the entire existence for me in corporate America. So much of what we do is hidden. All the costs and the fees are hidden in this policy. They're all hidden. No one knows. So I said, why would you buy a product from someone who's just thinking outside the box, where you wouldn't know what the price of you just write a blank check and you don't know if it works or what it really works on or if it's going to perform? Well, why would you do that? But everybody was doing that for years and decades, and that's what generations did. So I came up with something that management at the time wasn't totally in love with, and probably to this day thought it was terrible, I broke out what the pricing was and showed the people how much these things cost and told them, here's what I cost to do these things. And if you don't want to pay me for those things, you don't have to pay me. You can be the final judge. And guess what happened? All these people started talking about, this guy is doing these things and he's telling us what we're paying for. And this guy's performing and he's doing all of these things. It's an ovation, but you might want to listen to him. It's a little different. You might want to listen to him. And from there, we grew. We grew through the voices of all those people who said what we did instead of the one voice trying to convince people what we did. And it changed the whole dynamic, but it was from innovation. It was from taking that creative first step, and to aim high is something we do as an aspiration. It's something I do as a person. It's something people that work with me do as well. If you can copy this and take this screenshot, this is one of my ways, and I think it's a way you could adapt, and you could come up with a Socratic way of looking at risk with people to make the decision to risk their decision, not so much your forced choice. The first thing I'm going to ask you is this. In the choice you make, is it going to kill you? So many people, when they have fear, the question is, will this kill you? You always need to know. You come into my office and you have an opportunity. I'm going to ask you the first thing, what is the worst case? What happens if this whole opportunity you're trying to create blows up? So tell me right now, what's the worst case? You're going to try something. This is what it is. Okay. Before you go, it blows up. What do you lose? If you can solidify what it is that is your worst case, you can move forward to create best case from there. Remember that thing we talked about, that no person is an island? How do we get through this? By working together, by having those people come in to supplement those things that you don't do well. Like for me, it was math. Well, how do you find people, allies? How do you find those people that can help you come from this worst case to make your best case? Second part, what does winning look like? What cashes your check? What does winning look like? Whether it's personal or whether it's financial, whether it's one and the same. When do you know that you won? What's the objective? What is the day? What's the deadline? What does it look like to you? How do you know you've done this? We enter into a lot of things as a nation, and we don't know what winning is. Where do you spend time? What is it? What's the deadline? What's the timeline? What does it look like? Worst case, best case. Are there costs? Okay. How much money do you have to put out? How much do I have to fund? How much of your emotional capital, remember we talked about those pillars, how much of that emotional capital do you have to spend? How much of that financial capital are you going to lose to gain? How much? And what are the perceived costs to your reputation if you do it? So you need to analyze that choice. And people will come to me after a talk and say, Bill, that sounds great, but I got a family at home, and I got kids at home. And what do you do when you want to change careers, but you really have to have this job because you got a family? I can't answer that. That's a personal question and answer, and I would say that you have to address the home front first as part of a worst case scenario. And there are incremental small steps to move forward in a different direction that would give you a sense of security for the time. But you've got to be responsible in those choices. But this is how I do it. And I think if you did this, you would really end up finding better answers from the question, because the person that you speak with is answering your question. You're not giving them the answer. What's your worst case, John? Ellen, if you do this, how much will it cost you? Suzanne, if you do this, how much time? Okay, what's the next step? Oh, now what did we learn from the last one? Oh, we failed. Where did we fail? Oh, we didn't do that. So what about that? Well, I'm going to do this. Okay, and then what about, oh, and I'm going to do this. And then you see you're doing a post-mortem from the past failures, and you're using those questions for people to answer so they own those answers and they move forward. And that's how a company grows. That's how an organism grows. That's how we've flourished as individuals. In Matt Ridley's book, The Rational Optimist, he talks about the time to be optimistic is right now, more than ever. And how we grew more optimistic is from sharing ideas and from exporting ideas as generalists who had to do everything to specialists, and where we can get things done in a different time frame, where we have more time to ourselves for leisure, where we can do these things that will help society. Now, I don't know if I agree with all of his points, but I see some of them. Cooperation, sharing, language, fire, move off and create and grow. And it all comes with knowing what is the upside, what's the downside, who do we need to help us, how do we get there, who could address those weaknesses, what does winning look like? When you're interrupted by the unexpected, which happens, that was the pandemic. I think that you will know that you've done this as well, probably in your career, or you will do this now. Every day you have a shot to build value. Every day you have a chance to read more, learn more, and do more. Every day you have a chance to make yourself more valuable for your current employer or for your future employer. It is you. Now, if I find you valuable because you started to build your skill set, okay, you're writing these letters now, you're doing these things, you're thinking, you're taking action, people are listening to you, okay, this is good. This is good. I'm gonna want to keep you. Competition's gonna want to hire you. I'm gonna want to keep you. You become more valuable. Someone is going to find your value if you're creating value every day. Let me tell you what happens to most people in our industry. If you're not that person that takes risk, if you're not the person that moves through failure, if you're not the person that understands fear is the invisible barrier, you're going to make a jump horizontally to a competitor, and they're going to pay you 10 to 15, maybe 20% more. And then you might make one more jump, but then they're going to find out, hey, wait a minute, what are we paying for? Because you don't have any vertical skills. You can't do these things that this income level warrants. You can't. So I encourage everyone in my employ, every one of my coworkers, grow your skills, grow your resume every day. Shine up your resume, because I'm going to want to keep you if you're bringing this value. Guess who the final arbiter of value is? Not me. It's the people you serve. Whoever you serve, at the end of the day, you can say you serve yourself, and you do. And you got to keep creating that value. But there are people out there that pay for that value. That is how you become a little more recession-proof when stuff hits the fan and it becomes unexpected. Now, that sounds great, right? But I went through it with you. It was the same thing. And we couldn't do this. So we had to adapt. We did Zoom calls. They're boring. They're full of fatigue. So guess what I did? I stopped doing that dang screen where the head looks like that small. And I just started getting a full-blown dance around thing. People said, well, ain't too bad. It's the old guy's dancing around. So I started changing stuff. And little by little, I started in hybrids, and little by little, it just started to change. And the same thing happened in the company. The first thing is I knew that my coworkers were going to freak. You know what they're going to freak out over? Are we going to be around? You know what the honest answer is? I don't know. But I will let you know when I know. No, but I am going to do this for you. I'm not going to stop anything. No benefits, nothing. I'm not going to cut. We're not going to do any of that. But here's what I want. You're going to hug virtually your customer every day. You're going to tell them, we are here for you. Because if you don't, someone else will. And they will take our customer. Now, if they do that, I can't afford to keep paying you. Everybody got that picture. Everybody played together. And I know we ended up gaining market share. That's how it worked, because we protected our downside. People need, it's a need, not a want, to feel safe. They need to feel safe. You need to protect them as a leader of a company. They need to feel safe. They also need to be stretched. They need to be accountable. But you earn trust by keeping them safe. And the thing that you learned in the last talk, people are going to assess you, analyze you, and determine your culture based on what you tolerate as a person, as a leader. From your boardroom to the living room, what you tolerate, you become. You aspire to mediocrity, then you tolerate it. You'll get it. Life moves forward. If you don't make the substantive changes to move your life forward, you will go in retrograde. At a certain age and stage, you're going to be too tired to change that stuff. And then you're stuck with regret. Worst fear in my life. So every one of you need to go home tonight and just turn off the lights in the dark. Your fears will come percolating to you. That's when they like to show up, man. Live and in charge. Here's my fear. How are you going to do that? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm done. I don't want to get out of these covers. But then you pull the cover down, you put that coffee on, you make it really strong, you do 2 cups and you charge out the door. Hopefully you're clothed, and it's all good. That is getting engaged in life. What's your biggest fear? Find it. You will find your way forward. I'm going to tell you. I'm in there 3 holes, and guess what? I got really good at it in that factory. They said, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to promote you to the paint room. So then, I was painting cabinets all day long for 8 hours. You know what I was doing? I learned this. I was visualizing. I was visualizing entire things. When I get out of here, I'm like the old movies of Steve McQueen. I'm throwing the ball like Great Escape. I'm thinking, and I said to myself, one thing, you need to do this, whether it's your kids or your friends, you need to do this. What am I willing to sacrifice to get out of here? What am I willing to give up to get? What is it? And then you pay that price. Oh, a lot of people say, I'm going to pay the price. Bill, I'm going to kick some butt out here, man. And then that fear comes around the corner and grabs them by the neck, you know, and they quit. Here's what the ancient Greeks did, allegedly. I like to believe it. It's a good story. I tell it. They used to take an island in the days of Homer. Then the leaders would burn some of those boats. They didn't burn them all. They had to take back the treasure. But you pretend you're one of those soldiers. Where are you going to go? You see, that's what you got to feel, that grip. And so for me to think about that regret of leaving something on the field of life that I could have done at the time that I can't do now because I'm too feeble, man, it just doesn't feel good. Let me tell you a great story. Just got the email during this session. I was going to Dallas to give a talk. And there was a woman that reminded me of my mom. She was 90, she found out she was 91. They brought her up in a wheelchair. She walked perfectly, walked right over, sat down next to me, real classy, just sat there, you know. And the guy that pushed her up from United said, don't mess with her. I said, no, okay. So she's on the phone with her son, just like my mom used to do, you know. She's saying, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, oh yeah, it's good. I'm going to So, excuse me. She said, oh, excuse me, are you good on this plane? Am I at the right place? And I said, yes, ma'am, you are. And we started talking. He was 91 years old. She said, I'll tell you what I'm doing. My husband passed away 8 years ago. I haven't been out of the house doing much, except I am walking around the streets during COVID. I know I shouldn't do that, but I am. I looked at her, and she said, I'm going to meet my high school sweetheart. My kids brought me up on this thing called Facebook. I don't know anything about it, but my kid does it for me. I met this guy as my sweetheart, so I don't know. I guess I'm going to do what kids say is hang out and just see how it goes. And I mean, I am telling. She said, and I beat cancer twice. You know what it is? It's attitude. And I said, oh my God, if a fraction of my people could get that in my company, if a fraction of people could see the courage in this 91-year-old woman, the way she looked at the possibility of tomorrow doing those fearful things, she says, you know, this might go to heck. I don't know, but I'm going to do it. And so she goes, do you have a name, a card? I said, I got both. And gave her a card, so I didn't think I'd ever hear from her again. Well, 2 months go by. I got an email from her. She said, remember I was in this seat and you were this seat and I went there and it was fun and I heard the cicadas and it was there. And I'm like, wow, this lady is living and enjoying life. She's talking about those things that most of us overlook as we're chasing on to the next shiny object. I sent her 2 books. She wrote back. I don't know if I can read them both. I'm kind of old, but I will get into one of them right now and come back to you. And I'm just thinking, wow. I mean, she's my heroine. Wow. And I got people who are vital and vibrant and full of tremendous potential. The worst word in the dictionary, if it ain't cashed with result, is potential. And you see them as a leader, and you want for them as a leader, and you spend money for them, and you coach them, and you teach them, and you drive them, and you do these things, and you go on appointments. At the end of the day, they don't want it. They don't want it. And you become frustrated. You know the first place that frustration comes from? Expectation that is unfounded. But man, I see it. I see it in everyone. You will be next. Oh man, you're going to kill it. We're going to win the Super Bowl with you. No, you ain't, because I don't like to get hit. That's life. And so, I say to you, on that real tough question, but what do you do with the young as you're admixing or having an admixture with people that are more set in their ways? I don't care if you're 24 and set in your ways. You're probably not going to make it with me. Too rigid. Find another place. You got to be in that place with those people who will support those dreams, encourage you to flourish, and if they don't, find another environment. They absolutely exist. 100%. Or live your life for the rest of your life showing up to get a paycheck, like I was in that factory. So let me just tell you. I was painting, and my brother was going to go play football at the University of Richmond. And I was always throwing to him because I was a quarterback, right? And I had grown my hair. I started smoking cigarettes, and I was drinking beer at the local watering hole. I mean, it's really long, like Joe Namath. And smoking and drinking, doing all those weird things. And my mom said, well, we'll give you one more chance. But if you mess this up like you messed up every other chance you've had, you are coming right back here. And I went, whatever it is, I'm going to go. And I sat down my first day in school. And I didn't know it. I couldn't even put together a sentence more than 3 words. I swear to you, I couldn't do it, right? And I didn't know these words. And I'm like, oh, gosh. And I stayed up till 4 in the morning. So people used to come to me at a Big Ten school, and they'd say, hey, man, it's party. Let's go. What are you doing freaking sitting here studying at 4 in the morning? You should be out there rocking with us. I remember my mom standing there. I remember the tears in her eyes when I left the house. And I said, no, I can't go back. And I learned how to learn. And I did the work. And I wasn't the smartest thing out there, but I was the most determined. And I had some massive willpower. Remember that bar I told you? It's a little bigger than that. I had a lot of willpower. And I remember what that smelled like. Sawdust and lacquer. I remember. And I wanted something more. And I thought, if I crash and I burn and I fall on my sword, it's my sword. I'm going. And I never looked back. That was my Rubicon. That was the stream I crossed. There was no return. There was no way back. That was it. 90% of that was the resilience it took, the effort it took to meet people, to take my own damn ego, which was about the size of this room until it got beat down to the size of my little finger, and put it behind me. And it ain't about me. It's about you. When I learned that, I started to win hearts and influence those minds. And that changed my entire life. Servant leadership, the other is first. Servant leadership is your employees, your coworkers, those people who work with you. You serve them. You cannot receive value until you become value. You become value when you grow those pillars. The intellectual part where you're curious, you're learning, you're finding just one thing new. One thing new. Same with physical. Putting yourself in motion so you can cash those checks that your mind is writing with your body. And that emotional care, man, that emotional feeding, you can bring home millions and millions of dollars. But if you don't have an emotional field, the admiration and the ability to be cherished and to feel that love, connection to other people, what good is it? It's an empty ship. It's an empty ship. Always think, find that emotional connection, the physical, and the overarching spiritual belief in something greater than you. You see, when you start doing that, everything looks like an opportunity. All those threats that come from the dark are taken care of when you're banking results. And people aren't going to hand it to you. There are a lot of people drinking from the fountain that we want to get to. We've got to earn our way to that fountain. And when we're there, we got to stay there by earning the right to stay there, by doing those things every day that make us what? Valuable. I'm out of time. Is that what you're trying to show me? Man, you guys are going to miss me, aren't you? I know you are. You're wondering, how long can this guy go? You give me a Snickers bar, I'll give you another 8 hours. But I want you to do a little more research, all right? I know it's a big ask because people tell me what to do. I'm like, I don't know about that. Carol Dweck, Stanford researcher, 20 years, great TED Talk. She's boring as watching paint dry, but she is brilliant. No, here's what she found. And I love this because I kind of try to relate to this. She found that for so long, teachers, nothing about teachers, all right, but teachers have been doing us a disservice by telling us that the intelligence is fixed. And so people like me who couldn't do math because I thought, I'm just not that smart. Because teachers will tell you, you're not that smart. So you carry that in life and you go and you find those ceilings that are very low because I'm not that smart. But she said, I gave tests to people who had always received this accolade for doing great work and getting the A's. And it was all about the grades. And it was all about what that did. And here's the other people that are here. And I praised both parties. I praised the ones that got the A to say, man, you must really be smart. And the ones over here that really work, you must really work hard. So then she offered another test. And she said, do you want the one that's easy? Or do you want the one that's harder? The ones that were smart wanted the easy one because they wanted to keep saying, I'm smart. And the other one said, well, you give us the hard one. For the most part, they took the hard one. Guess what? Then she gave him a third test. Insoluble, even for Jude. No one could figure it out. He's in the back of the room. No one could figure it out. And the ones that had the fixed intellect, that were always measured by grade, that had wrapped themselves in the grade, they quit. They were angry. They just, the other ones are like, not yet, but this is fun. She tracked them later in life. She found out that willpower and that determination was a greater predictor of future success, even more than intelligence. Thank you, Carol Dweck. So how many people do you know have a fixed mindset? Not going to change what I do, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff you see about parents getting kids into college because this guy does a great thing. BS, man. You're not learning. You're memorizing. And people that come into my company, they memorize really well. But guess what learning is? Getting your behind handed to you, learning from failure, learning fear is part of the story you're going to write at the end of your day. That's it. Everything else is memorization. And that ain't living. You don't want to be a cut and paste of the thoughts of another. You want to be you. Man, I should have done this on the first session. It's just too early. It was just too damn early. All right, I'm gonna cut this because I think I'm at the time, right? All right, so you got to help me. Right now, I'm like, let's go. Ask me questions, stump me, and I'll tell you, I got a resource back there in Jude that can probably answer for me. So anything that you're going to throw my way, I'm happy to address.
As a manager, I supervise a lot of people, and I've gotten pretty good at having a difficult conversation and addressing difficult issues, gotten the courage there. But how do you recover from the fear of those conversations? How do you kind of pull yourself back together afterwards? So I find I put all my energy up front, and then once it's done, it takes me like a week to get through.
So in every one of those conversations, because you're very, very emotionally invested in the outcome. And since you've done those, but you always have recovered. Have you found yourself recovering in a shorter period of time, or is it still a week?
It gets better over time, I think, depending on the conversation.
Here's what I try to do. It only works for me. It works for people in my company have to do this. They have to put an old-fashioned tablet down. And the tablet is a metaphor for the conversation. You want to keep your conversation in the lines of that tablet. You don't want it to digress into a personal attack, even though some of that stuff is personal, yes. But you want to stay in the lines of what you need to say. A, I commend you 110% for having that tough conversation. I'll tell you why. 2, I wish I could offer you a panacea, a salve to recuperate, but what that tells me is you're so emotionally invested in it, that probably makes you a tremendous, tremendous leader. You have the tremendous, because of the empathy and emotion. If you could that, you probably wouldn't be. That might be something you have to live with. But let me tell you what happens if you don't have the tough conversations. I know that's the best answer I have at that point. Let me tell you what happens. You walk around, you know this, all right? A CEO friend of mine told me once, Wooditch, as soon as you think about firing someone, do it, because the time from when you first think it and you do it will expend your emotional and financial capital. And I have never proven him wrong. Remember I told you about that gut? First time I know, and then they stop looking in your eyes, and then you know, and they don't know, but you don't know how to do it. Who's going to have the tough conversation? No one wants that football? I'd love to hire you. Just if I could afford you, I would. But you need to have that conversation. And the longer you have someone there, the more you take on, oh, I don't want to, she's got a cat to feed and a kid. It's a whole nother level. And I'm an emotional person, but you're doing it the right way. I really like what you're doing. You have to feel that. And the moment you don't feel that, I think you become less human. I feel every one of them, even though I don't do any of them. It's true. That is a fact, though. And the longer you carry that one, and all it does is affect you. And I'll tell you something that'll make you feel, it might not make you feel better. In 28 years, not 25, 28 years of having my own company, right, or having me, I learned this. For the most, 90% of the time, I feel worse than they do. Most of the time, they're relieved. It's like, I don't know what you, they do. They know what's, you know when you put in a good day and when you don't. You know when you're doing a blanky job and when you're doing a great job. And for the most part, they're relieved. Now, some are really, truly surprised. They look in the mirror and think they're a superhero. I get it. But there should be enough in the feedback loop. There should be enough in your loop of feedback and, I don't want to say critique, feedback to tell them where they are. Those tough conversations make the real tough one easier. I've done that. That's the key. Great 2 questions. I didn't feed that to her, by the way. As fast as I can run now. My 40s are never very good. I should have told you the rest of the story about everything the factory is. Fascinating. You have to buy my books. Or if you don't want to buy them, send me an email and I'll send them to you. You don't want free of charge. It's fine. So anybody who endures two sessions of mine, a free book. Not saying I'm going to autograph it, but anything else?
How do you balance I had a question that evolved, but you've answered a lot about fear, failure, and expectations. But it seems like one failure negates 5 or 6 successes. How do you balance?
Depends on the weight you assign to the failure. So if you have 5 or 6 successes that are micro, and you have one macro failure, it could engulf that. But for the most part, I want you to do one thing. Break failure into 2 failures. Micro, macro. Anything that doesn't kill you is a micro failure. So you can learn from that. So the weight of your expectation has to be founded upon reality. Why did you expect for this to be a success? Then, okay, wait a minute, it's a gift. Where did I fail? How can I learn from that thing? That is a gift. It's a gift. I listened to Mike Tyson on the way here, and he said, failure is something that I love. I crave it because that tells me how I get better. But I wouldn't downplay your successes, man. I think you got that switched. Failure is just part of the game. That's my answer on that, because I live that one. I fail a lot. Probably failed a little bit today, maybe 4 or 5 times, but nobody really knew it, except Steve over here. Any last question you want to wrap with? I was going to tell you something really important. No, I can't remember it. I waited till the end. I did something, I never do this. Never bury your lead. If you want people to read stuff in your email, put it on the top caption. I learned that from a very, 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 very top politician, which doesn't mean much, right? But on that caption, he said, if you want me to read something, son, put that damn thing in the caption. I ain't going to wait for that lead. Okay. What do you have for me?
You've already talked a lot about environment. I'm curious to know regarding control of your environment. And you seem to, because it involves risk and change, but an eagerness to, maybe not an eagerness, but a willingness to seek control. How does that play out in your organization and personally?
Okay. So the last part was his lead. Well, how do you seed control? First thing you need to know is control is an illusion. Here's what control looks like in a company. I'll tell you right now. Here's where leaders go wrong. Power for the sake of power means I have a title, you're going to do what I tell you to do, you're going to do it right now. Guess what happens? You're going to burn out your good coworkers. They're going to leave. They're not myrmidons. They're not under the yoke. They will leave. So that's because I say so, because I am your boss. Terrible, terrible approach. The exponential approach to leadership is found in your question. It is called influence. It is earned by consistent behavior. Influence means you know you're not in control. So the first way you cede control is to understand who controls. Who controls us is our client. Who takes care of the client? My coworker. So who's the third person in the chain? The servant leader. And by doing that, I've created a work carpet environment wood floor that says, hey, you're in charge of your own destiny. If you do this, you're going to make this, and if you do this, you're going to be here and doing these things, but you got to take care of these people. And I influence them. Sometimes you've got to tell them what hill to die on. Sometimes, but it's finite. Power is that type of power. Authoritative power is very, very finite. People will shut off. They could be sitting there turning a computer on, they're playing video games. They're gone. Influence is infinite because you're teaching people what to do, how to do it in your way, and in that way you are in control. That's how I have done it and sleep really well with that. But it takes time and investment of emotion. It takes time. And when you get it wrong, it takes more time. That's just the nature of the beast. I had something really good to tell you too. Man, I should have had the Snickers bar. Look, if it ain't okay, try it. Be smart. Get one life, no regrets. Always forward. It's the way of life. Thank you for listening, enduring, and engaging me.